Alright everyone, what is up? Welcome back to my second video. This time we're going to start to explore edit mode and editing objects. Now I started off a new scene and I left this here for you guys to show you. As you can see on the default cube here, if you remember the first time we put the default cube in, what happened was we got an orange outline which was fully orange. This is kind of broken up if you see the outline here. This is a bug sometimes that happens with Blender itself. All you need to do is you just need to go into another tab and you need to come back out and then it will be fully highlighted. So if you were to go and start a new scene, which I'm going to show you how to do in a second, then you just press tab on your keyboard. So tab on your keyboard and then press tab again, and as you can see now the block is highlighted. So sometimes it happens, it's a little graphical bug. Okay, so to start a new scene, if you wanted to start a new scene and instead of starting up Blender itself and getting into general tab and stuff like that, all you need to do is you need to come to file, new, and then you can pick whatever you want. So like we done with the splash screen, you can pick whatever you want. So general, 2D animations, sculpting, etc, etc. New and general, and then what it does is it just puts the default scene back in. So it puts in the light and it puts in the camera and it puts in the cube itself. Now in the last video I told you about the box select tool, which is over here. You can use this or press B. Also what you can do is you can actually select objects themselves by shift and left clicking objects. So if you wanted to just say highlight 2 or 3 specific objects and you didn't want to highlight all of the objects, what you could do is you could actually go along and you could highlight the first object and then hold shift on your keyboard and left click another object, left click mouse another object, and then it would select that object, and you could do that for all of the objects that you wanted to select as well. So that's holding shift on your keyboard and left mousing on each object will actually select the object. Now the best thing about 2.81, and it's a nice feature that's been put in, and I've been looking forward to it for a long time, is the ability to select the objects in the hierarchy here as well. So in the hierarchy here we have our camera. Now I can go and I can actually press shift on my keyboard and I can select this and select this. Before you weren't able to do this. This is very good for complex models that have lots of bits and pieces and lots of geometry here and there, like for instance a big massive scene, a game scene, like with lots of little barrels and stuff, and you wanted to just click certain stuff. This is very good for this, and it's a welcomed addition to Blender because it now allows us to select specific stuff, within collections and stuff. But yeah, that's very handy to have. But yeah, you can select them by holding shift on your keyboard and then selecting the objects that you want. Or in here you can also do the same thing by clicking on it and pressing shift on your keyboard and selecting which objects that you want. Okay, so with that aside, let us now move on to edit mode. Okay, so we were in object mode at the moment. As you can see up here at the top, we have object mode. That's the mode that we were in. Now we're going to move into edit mode. Okay, so we can move into edit mode in two ways. We can press tab on our keyboard. Sorry, we can move into it in three ways. I apologize. We can move into it in three ways now because we have these awesome little tabs up here at the top. We can press tab on our keyboard itself, which brings us into edit mode. We know we're in edit mode now because this says edit mode. Also our cube is showing us vertices and edges now, and also it's highlighted a different color. So in object mode you can see that my Blender is stopping, and it's trying not to respond itself at the moment. So as you can see, Blender does get a bit buggy, but this is it. It's a constant work and we're constantly working on it. So what I'll do is I'll restart Blender itself and I'll get it back up and running for you guys. Give me 1 second. Okay, and we should be back up and running, and hopefully we are. Yep, and we are back up and running. Okay, I do apologize about that, guys, but yeah, sometimes it can be buggy and crash, and there you go. So I'm back on my scene again. So as you see, I am in object mode. I press tab, I can go into edit mode, and I can also press tab to go back into object mode. I can press this little drop down menu here, and I can select edit mode from here as well. Gives me the same thing. Or I can use these awesome little tabs up the top here. If I, as you see now, in the moment I'm on layout, which is object mode. Modeling is edit mode. So once you go into modeling, then you get the edit mode as well. So you can use these tabs, or you can use this menu, or you can just press tab on your keyboard itself. So now we're in edit mode. As you can see, this bar has got a lot more features now. So right now at the moment, right now at the moment we have these which we had in object mode. Plus we have more underneath it, we have various specific tools that we can use as we are modeling. But first of all, before we get into those tools, let's talk about what we are seeing right here now at the moment, okay? So this is the default cube, okay? And we have information about this cube, and the basic information about this cube is that it is a cube, it is a mesh, and it has a material. So materials we go into in another video, but this is a cube and it is a mesh and it has a material. Now over in our outliner over here, we can see this by clicking this little this little arrow here down, and we can see. So here is our cube. This is our cube right here, and attached to it is a material. And again, if we look in here, we can see our material. So this is our cube. It's a base mesh, and it has a material on it. So we know that, okay, so we have our cube, and it is a base mesh, and there's a material on it. But we have more information about it as well, okay? Because if you look at this cube here, it actually has what's called geometry, okay? So it has vertices, edges, and faces, which actually make up the mesh itself. Sort of like a wireframe, and then the mesh is built onto the wireframe itself. So for instance, if you go to the right hand corner, okay, if you go to the right corner and you look down the bottom, you see that we have information about it here. So we have 8 vertices, 12 edges, and 6 faces, okay, and it's 12 triangles, right? Okay, so vertices, edges, and faces. What it means by vertices, edges, and faces is it means the geometry that makes up the 3D mesh itself. So for instance, we are now on what's called vertex mode, okay? So up the top on the left hand side, you will see that we have our vertices, we have our edges, and we have our faces, okay? And you can highlight these by left clicking on them, each one of them, or by pressing 1, 2, 3 on your numpad. And what this does is it highlights the specific geometry of the mesh itself. So for instance, we're on vertex select mode, and vertices are these little points in the corner here. You won't really see them now for the moment, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into what's called wireframe mode, okay? You can access wireframe mode by pressing Z on your keyboard. So press Z on your keyboard, and then you can use either the numpad 4 to get the wireframe, or you can just move your mouse over and click wireframe. When you click wireframe, it does exactly what it says. It actually makes it a wire-framed model, so it shows you what is making up the geometry. So as I said, we are in vertex select mode at the moment, and the vertex are these little points in the corner. So if I just left click one of these points, now as you can see, this point here is a vertice, okay? So 2 vertices will make an edge. So if I hold shift on my keyboard and I click the other vertice down here, you can see now that these 2 vertices are making an edge. So this is the edge along here. So if I switch to edge mode and I click here, as you can see, I've highlighted that edge. So these 2 vertices are making up this edge itself. If I was to select all 4 vertices here, it would actually make up a face. So 4 vertices make up a face, and if I select face mode, you can see it is actually selecting the face itself. So this is the info that we're getting about our cube. So it's telling us that we have that we have our 8 vertices, our 12 edges, and our 6 faces. And if we were to count around it, you would see that that is what the geometry is. Now, according as you go modeling and stuff like that, your geometry adds. You would add to your geometry, so you would add more vertices, you would add more faces, you would add more edges and stuff like that, and then the count would start to get a bit higher, and that's where you get high poly and low poly. High poly is where it's starting to get more bigger with all of your geometry that you're adding, and that's why it's getting high poly, and that's why it's getting bigger, and then you're getting more vertices, more triangles and stuff. But based for the moment, all you need to know is that we edit our model using our vertices, edges, and faces. So I'm in wireframe now at the moment, okay, and this is going to give me a perfect idea of showing you what I meant by that box select tool. So if you are on an object and you want to deselect the object, you press A on your keyboard. So that's A on your keyboard twice. Press A twice and it will deselect, and A once, and it will select, and A twice to deselect. So as you can see, as I was saying to you, if I wanted to just get a specific vertices, so say for instance I just wanted these 3 vertices here at the top, but I didn't want this one at the back, I could shift select each one of them, or I could just use my bounding box tool, selection box, like I showed you in the first video, and then we can just hold our mouse over, and now as you can see I've just selected those 3 vertices. As you can see there, I've selected those 3 vertices there, and if I wanted to select one down the bottom as well, I could just go and I could just actually shift and select that one, and now I have those vertices selected. So now I can just edit those. So that's what the box tool is for. It's actually for selecting specific stuff, and it's very good if I just wanted to select these back ones here, and I wanted to be able to extend that out and stuff, So yeah, that is the basics of vertices, edges, and faces. Just know that every mesh object has a wireframe, and on that wireframe the mesh is built around it. So the mesh is actually built around the wireframe. So you'd have 2 vertices which make an edge. The 2 vertices would make the edge, and then 4 vertices would make a face, or 4 vertices and 4 edges would make a face, and that's how we actually make up our model. Now to just go back out of wireframe again, we can just press Z on our keyboard, or we can just go up here to this menu here. If I can actually see it here, and as you can see, up here in the menu here, you see we're in wireframe here, and you can just click either one of these and it goes back into solid shading as well, you see. So you can click here, go to wireframe, or go to solid shading up on the right hand side, or you can just go and press Z on your keyboard and then go back to solid. So now we're back in edit mode and we're actually on solid. So now let's look at editing the cube itself, okay? So if you wanted to edit this cube, for instance, say you wanted to edit this cube and you wanted to bring one of these faces inwards, okay? So for instance, you wanted to bring one of these faces inwards, and you wanted to bring it down. So as you can see, if we go over to face select mode, and if I click on the face and I use my move tool here and I go to bring it down, you see it actually brings the whole mesh itself down, and I mean that's fine, that's okay, but I want to actually bring the face inside the mesh itself, So what I can do is I can use what's called extrude, okay? So I can actually extrude this down, or I can extrude this up. Now to extrude, you press E on your keyboard, okay? So I press E on my keyboard, and as you can see, I've extruded it up. See, it's after giving me more geometry now, so it's after giving me another set of edges another 4 vertices and another 4 edges, you see. So if you look, you see it's after giving me more vertices here that I could work with, you see. And that's by extruding it up, I've actually got that extra geometry. So that's what, as you model, it actually gives you extra geometry. So as you can see, I've just extruded that up, and I can pull it up and down and stuff like that, and I can pull it and I can bring it back in. But right now at the moment, what's happening is I'm getting some clipping because it's starting to artifact, which means that there's a problem with the normals. So the normals are actually causing the problem. You can see when I move around that I'm actually getting a problem because this mesh has come back on itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the extrude tool. So first of all, I'm going to press Ctrl Z, and I'm going to go back a few steps to where I have my mesh itself, and my mesh is back to normal. So now if I turn around and if I come over here to my tool panel, okay, and as you can see here, we have our extrude region here, okay. So as you can see, we can press E and extrude it, or we can use it over here. And now what I want to do is I want to actually go and I want to actually extrude it down, okay. But first what I need to do is I need to actually make it so if I actually click on the extrude region and if I extrude it down, you see I'm still getting that artifact clipping and stuff like that. What I need to do first is I need to inset the face just a small bit. So insetting the face will bring it in a small bit, and then I can bring it down. Insetting faces can be done by this toolbar as well here. So if you look over in the toolbar here, you have inset faces, so you can do that as well. Or you can press I on your keyboard. So pressing I on your keyboard, as you can see, the shortcut is there for it. So the shortcut is I. So if I press I on my keyboard and I bring it in a bit, you can see now that what it's doing is it's actually allowing me to bring in the face itself. So what it's doing is it's allowing me to bring it in so that I can actually bring it down a bit. So if I bring my face in a small bit here like this, and then if I left click on my mouse to put that into place, now if I press E on my keyboard or I go to my extrude region tool, now I can bring it down and I'm not getting that artifact now, because what it's done is it's actually went and it's actually made it so that I can now extrude it in. And I can do the exact same thing as well if I was to bring this up a bit, and say for instance if I wanted to extrude in some of these faces, I could actually click this face here again, and I could actually inset my face just a small bit, and then I could actually extrude it back. And as you see now, it's clipping because there's an artifact here from this itself. So I can actually go and I can actually extrude these faces back, you see. And you can get an idea of being able to extrude out and stuff. So you could actually extrude out, extrude up, and then if you were to press I and inset that face a bit, then you could extrude down, you see. And you can just extrude and inset to get your model to look the way that you the way that you want. And that's one set of tools that you can use for extruding and stuff like that itself, So for instance, I'm going to start off with a new cube, so I'm going to select that, okay. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to shift A. I'm going to actually shift A. I want to add a mesh, and I'm going to add a mesh cube, and I'm going to go back into edit mode. So as you can see right now, I'm going to have to bring it back to default cube, okay. So we've talked about inset and we've talked about extrude. One of the other tools as well for adding more geometry is loop cuts, okay. So what we can do as well is we can add loop cuts to our mesh, okay. So what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to add some loop cuts to a mesh, and we're going to actually extrude it in a bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make like a simple glass, basically, is what we're going to do. We're going to make a simple glass using a default cube, and then we're just going to use the tools that we talked about, and then we're going to work on making just a simple glass.